the hour. I think it's 6:30, if I'm not very much mistaken. 6:30 in the morning, that is. Lovely. So let's just make a start. So welcome back to Alive, Aware, Awake. And yeah, welcome if you're just joining in for the first time. So my name is Maitrisiddhi, and I'm hosting the session, and Sangadara is assisting on the live stream. So I'm just going to hand over really to Maitrisiddhi, who's going to be leading us through this session, which I understand is a Metta and the truth. Maybe I'm saying that wrong now, but she'll explain better. And we will have a chance to ask questions later as well. So yeah, just bear that in mind. We'll have a chance. But right now, I will just hand you straight over to Maitrisiddhi.
Thanks very much, Maitrisiddhi. And when we come to the questions part, are people going to do it by raising their little hands with the buttons?
I think we can just get people to speak when they feel inclined to. Yeah.
Marvelous. That sounds great.
That's worked the previous evenings.
Yes, it's almost like normal when we're all in a room together.
Yes, almost.
Yes. Right. Okay then, we've still got people coming in, haven't we? But I guess I'll just start and people can just come in on us. Okay, yeah, so welcome to this evening of day 6 of Alive, Aware, Awake. And today we've been looking at the 4th foundation. So it's our second day looking at the 4th foundation of mindfulness, which is Dhammas. And if you don't know what that is, listen to the last 2 talks at some point when you have time. But today what we've been particularly looking at is, well, I suppose both days we've been looking at how do we know what is true in our own experience? And Dharma can also refer to the teachings of the Buddha, so teachings about the truth or about the nature of the truth. And this 4th foundation of mindfulness, yeah, it's like, okay, so how do we take these truth teachings and we don't just believe them? We don't just think, oh yeah, the Buddha said it, therefore I'm going to go along with it. How do we bring mindfulness? How do we bring awareness to that teaching so that we know it for ourselves? We know it directly as true in our own experience. Yesterday we had Maitrisiddhi looking at, well, impermanence and beauty and that sort of thing. And today our focus is more around, well, the Buddha has all these truth teachings around metta, loving kindness, about, you know, our connection, our interrelatedness with other people and other beings and this whole living world. And he teaches that again and again. Okay, how do we look in our own experience to know that is true? And again, the Buddha teaches about ethics again and again and again. And he says, if we act out of a mind that is imbued with love and connection, generosity, wanting to give and contribute to the world, out of a mind that is contented and able to be present and enjoy this moment and not continually be craving after something else out there. If we have a mind that is able to be honest and truthful and authentic, we don't have to put up masks or tell lies to protect ourselves. And if we have a mind that is able to stay aware, to become mindful again and again, make that choice again and again, if we are acting or speaking or thinking or reflecting with a mind of love, generosity, contentment, authenticity, and awareness, the Buddha says again and again, actually, the results will be happy. They'll be happy for us and they'll be happy for others. We'll have a positive effect in the world, and we ourselves will, I don't know, be living from a deeper, more real and more content place. So he says again and again, hey, folks, ethics are a good thing. Caring about other people and also caring about ourselves, speaking to ourselves kindly, that's a good thing. So the Buddha says, oh, that's a good thing. How do we know that in our own experience? Because when we have habits come up, maybe of self-criticism, or we feel a bit miserable, so we're going to blame someone else out there. We don't want to be aware. We don't feel like being generous. Whatever it might be. How do we, over time, look in our own experience so that it's like we can touch the earth of our own experience. So it's like we know for ourselves deeply in our being that actually, oh yeah, kindness is the way forward. Actually, at this moment, it's hard to speak the truth, but actually speaking the truth is the way forward. Yeah, and the same with the other ethical qualities. So in today's talk, this is just a little recap that you need to know, but don't worry if you've listened to it or not. But do go and listen to it because it's really good. Okay, calm down, Maitrisiddhi. Oh, and I haven't said, oh, Annabeth's here. So I'm here and Annabeth, we're going to be chanting a mantra later on, and Annabeth's doing some of the chanting. She's going to start it for us. I live with Annabeth, she's great. Okay, where was I? Yes. How do we know in our own experience? How do we know the truth of ethics? So in today's talk, one of the things we were looking at was this totally gorgeous story where there's a woman who wants to give some gifts to the Sangha, to the Buddha's disciples. And the Buddha doesn't just say, oh yes, what a marvelous idea, thank you very much. He takes her through a whole reflective process where, so first he says, oh, well, why do you want to do that? Why do you want to act generously? What benefits do you foresee? And she comes out with a load of benefits to other people. It will benefit the Sangha if I give this, that, and the other. And that isn't enough for the Buddha. The Buddha says to her, oh, and what benefits do you foresee for yourself? Visakha, the woman's called Visakha. And then she goes through a whole reflection where she tunes in with, well, how does she feel when she's done that generous action? And she realizes she feels happy, and then she feels joyful, and then she feels calm, and then her mind becomes relaxed and focused, and the whole spiritual life, the whole Dhamma life opens out to her on the basis of her reflecting on her own generosity and letting that in. And there are other places as well where the Buddha asks people, well, actually, can you just sit down and reflect on your own generosity, your own kindness, your own ethical practice? He does this particularly to people living an ordinary life, actually. You know, there's this lovely phrase where he says, well, you can do this reflection in your home crowded with children. So it's like, whatever you've got going on in your life, you know, whether or not it's crowded with children, it might be crowded with something else, I don't know. These are reflections that we can bring in again and again. So this is what we are going to be doing this evening. Yes, so we're going to be doing a meditation where we rejoice in our own ethical practice. And I'll lead you through it, and I'll tell you the stages in just a minute. But first of all, I suppose it's like, well, why would we do this? The Buddha suggests that rejoicing is a good idea. And he also says that confession, when we realize actually we've fallen short of our ethical idea, our ethical aspirations, is also a good idea. But in this instance, we're just looking at rejoicing. We're not worrying about the deficiencies, or like all the times we weren't generous, or all the times we weren't kind, or all the times we weren't aware. We're simply kind of noticing, I was in the office and I went out to make myself a cup of tea, and I asked the others, would you all like a cup of tea too? It's like I'm taking them into account. I did an act of generosity, even though it was really small. It's like something had come into, there's like me and my agenda and what I want to get done. And I'd stopped and I'd thought, I want a cup of tea. Maybe these other people also want a cup of tea. So this practice is asking us to honor and take on board all the small actions. I mean, if you've done big, fantastic ethical actions, that's really great too. I mean, please do rejoice in them as well. But what we're doing is we're rejoicing and honoring what we do. And then we're noticing, when I bring awareness, when I bring presence, when I consciously bring to mind my own ethical choices. I bought fair trade orange juice instead of just the ordinary orange juice. And I did that because I cared about what workers in other countries, how their lives are. I did that thing. And then we're bringing mindfulness to what the effect is on our mind. Yeah? Very often I feel like we do ethical actions, we choose kindness, awareness, generosity, contentment, but actually, do we honor it? Do we dwell on it? Do we allow it to have that effect on our minds? Partly it's very motivating when we do. It's like there's a sense that, it can be a sense of pleasure, and then it's like, we could do that again. And partly it's just very encouraging. A few nights ago, I think Maitrisiddhi was making the point that actually it's quite hard to be aware. Particularly, the world can throw all sorts of stuff at us. And our own minds can also throw all sorts of stuff at us. And it can be quite difficult to, again and again, try to become present. And if we consciously are rejoicing in every time we are mindful, every time we make a generous choice, and we're noticing the effects, it's just really encouraging. It's like it makes our practice flower. Of course, I could also go on a whole thing about how it's the basis for insight, but you'll just have to come on some other retreats at Taraloka if you're able to learn about that. Now, I will say there can be quite strong barriers to rejoicing in our own ethics. We're doing something that's strongly countercultural. So generally in a Western culture, there's quite a strong belief that blame will cause improvement, like blame will make things better. So if we just point out all our faults to ourselves, actually somehow we're going to improve ethically. Now, it's not that there isn't a place for kind of noticing, oh yeah, I had an aspiration there and I fell short. I didn't act the way I wanted. But I reckon for every one time we do that, we probably want to do 5 times where actually we think, how amazing, I made that ethical choice. That's fantastic. So just notice if you've got something coming up that says, oh, I can't do that. You might have been told not to blow your own trumpet when you were little, or you might think it's boasting, or I don't know what else. You might have a sense of guilt, actually, like, how can I rejoice in these small things when it just feels like there's so much that I don't do right? Well, while we're doing this practice, don't forget about the other 3 foundations of mindfulness, okay? So it's sort of like, if you notice thoughts like that coming up, well, you're in the 3rd foundation of mindfulness. Guilt thoughts, that's interesting. Are they pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? Where do I feel that in the body? And then choose, actually, there's this one practice that I'm doing right now. How about I have another go at focusing on what I've done right, on focusing on my ethical choices? It can feel like it's selfish. And I suppose it's like there is a danger that it's like, it would be possible to do this rejoicing in our own ethics practice in a sort of ego-based way, where I'm kind of going, oh yeah, look at me, aren't I so smart? I've done this, I've done that. You know, you lot, you're all just not doing it right. But this is a mindfulness practice. So if we notice that, well, we can just notice that and kind of go, oh, am I separating from others here? Actually, rejoicing in what we've done well, it's very simple. It doesn't require a kind of big, and I did it. It's more like just a very simple joy. I stepped out of the house this morning and I took a minute to look at the sky and enjoy the bird song. How amazing that I made that choice. You know, we can really learn to speak to ourselves in this way. And I think the other thing that was really occurring to me that comes up for people as a barrier is, well, it can be fear, actually. If we consciously allow ourselves to dwell on ethical actions and we allow our aspirations space, it's like we're asking ourselves to become a bigger person. We're saying, oh yeah, this is important to me. It's significant. It matters that I take these actions. I'm taking myself seriously as a spiritual being. And that can be a bit scary. It's a lot safer to stay small, to think, oh, it doesn't matter whether I did this or that. It doesn't matter whether it's fair trade orange juice or not. It doesn't matter whether I made that space to be aware. So there is something about this, about taking ourselves seriously and just not being afraid of that, like being able to think, yes, this is something to celebrate. The fact that I have an ethical practice, the fact that I make choices of kindness and love and contentment and so on, like that matters. That is important. And when we let that be important, it changes who we are. Okay, so just notice during the meditation if any of that or any other responses come up. Like I say, you know, this is a mindfulness practice. So we're going into it with a sort of genuine question. Oh, when I bring these instances to mind, well, what does happen? Actually, like a whole mix of responses may arise in us, and we're being interested. Right. So the meditation itself is in 4 stages. To start off with, we'll have a stage of simply becoming present to our experience. I'll lead it a little bit, but in whatever way you like. You may want to bring in the first 3 foundations of mindfulness if you've been following the retreat so far. And then in the second stage, I'll suggest that you bring to mind an ethical action. Now, there's going to be 2 stages where you bring to mind a different ethical action in each one. So just choose now, okay? The first ones that come to your mind are absolutely fine. You don't have to worry about getting the right one. And like I say, it doesn't need to be a big ethical action. So you're thinking of 2 occasions where you made a choice of kindness or generosity or contentment or honesty or authenticity or awareness. Okay? So 2 instances. And in those 2 stages, first we'll bring to mind that action, the memory, whatever, and we'll just notice, oh, how does that feel? And then we'll reflect on, oh, well, how was that for other people? What were the effects on others? And what was the effect on me? How do I feel now as I reflect on it? What was the effect on my mind at the time? How did the rest of my day go? Something like that. I'll lead it through so you don't have to be remembering all this. As we do the reflection part, just notice about this thinking thing, because you may want to think in answer to the questions that I'll be dropping in, like, how was that? But make a choice. Notice if you're getting into like a whole tangle of thinking that's taking you away from your experience. And if that's happening, just come back to body, come back to breath, stay with the breath as an anchor through the whole practice. We'll just let our bodies tell us the responses. And then in the final stage, we'll bring to mind all of us making ethical choices. And then imaginatively, we'll expand out into the world, bringing to mind all those different people in different places, making choices of love, generosity, awareness, all over the world. And at the end of the meditation, we're going to finish it by chanting, may all beings be well and happy, that Pali chant that we did on the first evening as well, which Annabeth is going to lead. And that feels very appropriate, because if we can get a genuine sense that this rejoicing in our own practice, it benefits us and it benefits the world, that's why we're doing it. If we can hold a sense of that, it really helps with allowing the rejoicing. Right. And then after the mantra, then there will be a chance to share responses or ask any questions if you would like to. So, let's go. So, settling yourselves to meditate. rejoicing in our own ethical practice. And in the first stage, simply becoming present. This body, this moment. Noticing sensations of being supported by the earth. Rootedness. And our spines rising up. Noticing those direct sensations that tell us where our body is in space. Noticing if there are any particular areas asking for attention. Maybe areas of tension in neck, shoulder, hands, face. Bringing curiosity. What is this like? And noticing now the sensations of breathing. The direct sense experience And noticing our minds, our emotional landscape. How does it feel to be us right now? And however that is, inviting a sense of kindness. This is enough. And so now bringing to mind an ethical action of mind, of speech, of body. Bringing it as vividly to mind as you can. And noticing in the body, oh, how does that feel to bring that to mind? Using our breath to let us know, how does it feel to bring that choice to mind? And now, if we wish, reflecting, oh, what effect did that choice have on others? And what effect did that choice have on us? And seeing if we can genuinely delight. How marvelous, how wonderful that I made that choice. Noticing in the body, how does it feel to allow ourselves to rejoice in that ethical action? So letting go now of that example, and tuning in again with the body. Bringing to mind now your second ethical choice. Perhaps a memory or an image. Allowing it to be vivid. And then noticing in the body, oh, how does it feel to bring that to mind? Allowing the responses to be whatever they are. And now reflecting. What were the effects on others of that choice I made? And what were the effects on myself? Allowing the body to tell us of our responses. And bringing in a sense of delighting, honouring, rejoicing. How does it feel to let ourselves delight in that choice we made? Tuning in again with breath and body. And now bringing to mind that all of us participating in this meditation are making these ethical choices. It's not just us. Bringing a sense of rejoicing in being part of a community where ethics is important, where people choose love and awareness. And opening wider now, each of us starting with our own countries. So many people of all different backgrounds, making choices of kindness, generosity, noticing how it feels to bring this to mind. And taking our awareness out across the world in whatever way you find best, all over this planet, people in different situations, making choices of connection, truth, love. How amazing, how amazing. It's not that we're ignoring the dark and painful sides, but we're bringing mindfulness to these other choices, these bright, skillful choices people make. So now dropping the practice, noticing body and breath. Sabbe sata sukhi hontu. 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 So at this point, if you just want to carry on meditating or sitting quietly, feel free to leave Zoom. And if you would like to share any responses or questions, I would be really delighted to hear them.
Hi, it's Anne-Marie here.
Hello, Anne-Marie.
Hello. Yes, the one thing for the responses for when you do your good deed, I kept thinking, well, how do we know what other people's responses would be to these good deeds? Because they're not seeing us necessarily doing the good deed. Because I was just doing it for picking up garbage when you're walking. Quite often do that. And I don't know, it's just, okay, so what is another person's response? So I could only put it back, well, what my response would be. Certainly when I don't see garbage, I'm enjoying it much better. Yeah. So is there, I don't know, some magic to thinking of others' responses would be?
Well, I think in a way, you're talking about this area where actually other people are always a beautiful mystery to us.
Yes. Yes.
Actually, you're completely right. It's not possible to know directly what somebody else is going to think or feel. But nonetheless, you probably can make an analogy with how you feel.
Yeah.
So if you're walking through, I don't know, where would you be picking up the garbage? Is it like in a street or in a park, or what would it be?
A park, usually, yeah.
Yeah. So, you could imagine, there's going to be like a family with little kids walking along and they're having a great time playing, and actually there aren't these kind of empty Coke cans and, blowing about crisp packets all over the place.
Yeah.
How marvelous, I'm giving them this beautiful place to play in. So you are using your faculty of imagination, but equally you're basing it on something which is your experience of appreciation when you see an area that is natural and isn't covered in litter.
Okay, thank you.
It sounds lovely. I'm a garbage picker-upper as well. Yeah, great. I'm wondering particularly if anybody had any of those barriers coming up, feeling like they shouldn't be doing it maybe, or a critical voice comes in and says it's not enough. Anything like that?
I had not exactly that, but some of the one or two examples that came to mind were times when I was going to do something good, but maybe I shouldn't have because I was already too tired, or and then it's like a resentful, unskillful ethical act. I don't know. So that came up for me when I do too much and should have not volunteered for that or the other thing.
Yeah. So it sounds like what you're doing is you're spotting actions where actually your motivations have been mixed. So maybe there was a certain not being sufficiently kind to yourself, or not being able to recognize your own need for rest, or your own limitations. And actually, in a way, well, that's a problem with the first precept, isn't it? So you're recognizing that. But then at the same time, I would imagine there would also have been a generous impulse mixed in with it. Would that be the case? So it's like, so you've got an example where it's not simple. And so what? So in a way, like, well, that just sounds marvelous. You know how I keep saying, oh, this is an awareness practice. So you're reflecting on that, and it's like, well, the rejoicing can happen around that. Well, how marvelous it was that I had that generous impulse. I really wanted to not leave that person to struggle to do whatever it was. So you can rejoice in that part, but then you're bringing mindfulness to it. So it's like, actually, I realize that I was overriding part of myself. Now, in your experience, what happens if you override yourself too often and keep doing things out of resentment? Like, what happens?
Yeah, not good.
Yeah, not good. So then when you're doing that rejoicing, you might also want to think of examples where you kind of thought, oh yeah, I've done this out of resentment before. What were the results? Not good. You know what? I'm not going to do that this time. And then you can choose that as an example to rejoice in. Look, I could have got into resentment about that. I made a clean choice. Actually, now wasn't the moment.
Very good.
So, by your bringing mindfulness and awareness, you're then, it's like you're educating, you're bringing a deeper level of awareness to your future choices.
Yeah. Good.
How wonderful.
It all works.
Yeah.
It's all content to be thoughtful about. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I think that was a really lovely one to bring up, Mary Ellen, actually, because you so aren't going to be the only person who sometimes, you're trying to do the right thing, but sometimes other things, it can be quite mixed, can't it?
I had two examples, and one, there was a more obvious kind of good impact or whatever for me, and I found that a lot easier to rejoice in. And the other one was more about what I thought would be a good impact for other people, and I had a lot more doubt about that. It might go back to what Anne-Marie said, but it was a lot more like, who am I to say that that was good for those people? So that I had that kind of like internal dialogue about, is that being a bit, and then it just felt quite dull because I couldn't really get much feeling in it, because I was almost like in a bit of a mental battle about, I think led to me suppressing the rejoicing, because it was a bit more like that thing about, am I just kind of bigging myself up by thinking that I'd done good for others? Whereas the example where it was an awareness example for me was a lot easier somehow.
Yeah. Well, in a way, I mean, that was just interesting that you said that it went flat and you kind of like lost connection with it. Because I wonder if sometimes it's like the rejoicing aspect will work better, and sometimes it'll be like a bringing awareness aspect, like, oh, what were my intentions? And if your intentions were genuinely good, well, you can rejoice in it. Like, in a way, you don't need to complicate it too much. So, like, and anything where you're bringing, oh, well, what actually are my responses around that? In a way, it's like, well, you're doing it. You're bringing extra awareness to that.
Yeah, it was quite interesting noticing how it went flat. Actually, that was yeah.
So that's a really lovely example, which I'd like to draw out more, but I'm aware that we've got to the end of our time, and I feel like I'd better hand back over to Sadaya Sihi. But thank you, all of you, so much for your participation. Yes.
Great. Thanks very much, Maitrisiddhi. It's lovely to have all these questions and a bit of dialogue going. But yes, we're coming to the end of our time. But don't forget that there is one more session tomorrow. We have our final session with the whole team again. So that will be a really good opportunity to come back together and practice for one last time on this home retreat. Same time, same place. You can find the link on thebuddhacenter.com/awake. And again, just to remind you, if you want to join in some online meditation sessions, you can on thebuddhacenter.com/meditation. But yeah, I guess we'll just leave it here for this evening. And I'll just invite you now to have the chance to unmute yourself and say your goodbyes and thanks to Maitrisiddhi and Annabeth. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you ever so much, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow, I hope.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you very much. Thank you. Lovely to see you all.
Bye.
Bye.